Good afternoon, everybody. Congratulations on your award. We're good to go? Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I want to begin, as we always do, by acknowledging we're on Treaty 1 territory and traditional homeland of the Métis. I'll just offer some brief introductory comments on some COVID matters, as well as, of course, the topic I wanted to cover with you today was just relating to the provincial budget that'll be tabled tomorrow. Provincial officials have reported today 33 new cases in the city of Winnipeg. Sadly, 2 additional deaths of our residents, and I want to offer our deepest condolences to all those family and friends that have been affected by additional losses of our residents to this virus. We have learned of 140 that are in hospital, 30 in intensive care unit. I want to remind Winnipeggers, of course, we are still in the storm dealing with COVID. 253 cases in Winnipeg over the last week alone. A test positivity rate that appears to be inching upward in the wrong direction at 4.3, and 5 new variant cases identified. So just to remind Winnipeggers, please continue to do your part. Be vigilant. Make sure you're washing your hands, you're wearing a mask, and you're watching your distance. And if you have the means, please continue to support local. We need to do everything we can to make sure that we're supporting our local businesses right now. I want to begin today's press conference by thanking the City of Winnipeg's public service employees that jumped into action to provide support to the provincial government when they made an urgent request recently for staffing assistance at the RBC Convention Centre vaccination site. Approximately 375 members of the city's public service have provided support to the provincial government recently at RBC Convention Centre. Today is the final day of those shifts by city staff. The provincial government has not asked for continued support for the city of Winnipeg at this time, but we stand ready to consider any additional requests if called upon again. I just want to say thank you very much to members of the city's public service for providing the support to the provincial government, and of course providing your support to the efforts at the RBC Convention Centre. Tomorrow, the province of Manitoba will table their 2021-2022 provincial budget. I have been advocating on behalf of City Council and Winnipeggers to provincial officials in recent weeks. I've previously written to the Finance Minister, Scott Fielding, and had the opportunity to meet virtually with him, as well as a few other ministers, joined by my Finance Chair, Councillor Scott Gillingham, for a discussion on what our hopes and our asks were for the provincial budget. And they're threefold, and I wanted to just be open with Winnipeggers today about what those asks are. We have asked that the provincial government provide provincial funding for the North End Sewage Treatment Plant and end the provincial delays on the project. Secondly, that the provincial government support public transportation. And thirdly, that they honor existing commitments to the city that they've made for operational and other support. I'll just get into a little bit of detail about what those 3 asks are in a little more granular detail for you. With respect to the North End Sewage Treatment Plant, this has been a project that has been talked about for many years. The city has taken the lead to break the project into 3 components, Phase 1 and Phase 2. We have, for the last number of years, been waiting on a request to the provincial government for support for Phase 1 and for Phase 2 of the North End Sewage Treatment Plant. This is an incredibly important project for all those that care about the health of our rivers and our lakes, as well as the continued growth and development in the city of Winnipeg and the surrounding capital region, which will rely on the capacity at the North End Sewage Treatment to ensure that growth can continue in Winnipeg and in parts of the capital region. Unfortunately, we have been waiting far too long for the province to confirm their full support for the project, as well as confirmation that they forwarded the Phase 1 and Phase 2 request for federal funding to the federal government. We will continue to advocate for Council's requests for federal and provincial funding for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the project. I will note in March, in our recent March meeting of Council, unfortunately, engineering work for the North End Sewage Treatment Plant was paused by the City of Winnipeg because of provincial delays. And of course, we don't want to see any further delays to the project as a result of provincial decisions or lack of decisions. With respect to supporting public transit, we've been asking the provincial government, both privately and publicly, now since May of 2019. This is when I first penned a letter to then Minister of Municipal Relations, Minister Rochelle Squires. We are looking for partnership from the provincial government to fully access as much of the federal transit dollars that are specifically earmarked for Winnipeg Transit. Since that time, the provincial government has requested and Council begrudgingly agreed to the transfer of some of those federal dollars to support the federal government's commitment to the North End Sewage Treatment Plant. There is now a smaller depleted pool of $203.6 million that the federal government has waiting for it to flow to Winnipeg Transit. And of course, we have been keeping the provincial government fully in the loop on the developments of the Transit Master Plan, a robust public engagement phase. The matter is now before Council, and we're expecting, subject to Council approval, for a request to be made to the provincial government. What we've been looking for specifically is just a commitment from the provincial government to do everything they can to reduce red tape, to work with us to access those dollars when that request is made. And so we'll be looking for that, and we'll be continuing to press the provincial government to support transit. We have, I think, a very ambitious plan for the Transit Master Plan, but we're going to need dollars, and there are dollars available in Ottawa, and we don't want to see a logjam on Broadway that could potentially block the flow of those dollars coming to Winnipeg for their intended purpose. The third thing that I'd mentioned was honor existing commitments to the City of Winnipeg. We're really looking for the province to maintain and to confirm provincial funding for the city in 2021. Those dollars amount to $273 million. There's $75.3 million of capital basket funding. There's $121.2 million of operating basket funding, and $73.6 million mostly for emergency medical services, reflecting the province's obligations under the expired EMS agreement, as well as police and public safety initiatives. We're hopeful that they can simply maintain and honor those existing commitments. Those are the three asks I wanted to let you know today, what they are, and we'll obviously be watching with everybody else tomorrow what the province has to say about those. With that, more than happy to answer your questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, James. How you doing?
Well, thank you. So what is the province doing in its jurisdiction to reduce phosphorus and nitrogen contamination in Manitoba lakes? Is this all on the City of Winnipeg?
Yeah, it's a great question, because we understand that approximately 5% of the nutrient loading that goes into Lake Winnipeg, for example, is sourced from the City of Winnipeg, and that is a lot, and it's something that is driving my commitment and Council's commitment to the upgrades for the North End Sewage Treatment Plant. But it does beg the question: what's the plan for the other 95% that is going into the lake? I have spoken directly with the Premier. I've also spoken with the Prime Minister in the past to offer my assistance to help with really what will require a tremendous political leadership to transcend provincial and state boundaries to ensure that there is a robust plan to make sure that we are cleaning up Lake Winnipeg. It's a lake that I care a lot about. My mother's family is originally from Victoria Beach. My grandpa was a commercial fisherman. I have seen, even in my own lifetime, the quality of the lake deteriorate. And if you speak with elders in and around Lake Winnipeg, they will also tell you that the lake is obviously in need of a lot of TLC from multiple levels of government. The watershed is so enormous. I mean, it goes right to the Rockies, it goes into the States. I've spoken recently with the mayors of Fargo, of Grand Forks. I've spoken previously with the mayors of other Canadian cities. We really do need provincial and federal leadership to really coordinate a robust plan to deal with the other 95%. And we also need the support of provincial and federal officials to support the North End Sewage Treatment Plant. And so we'll continue to offer that assistance, and I'll continue to raise the issue with counterparts at the municipal level, while also advocating to the provincial and federal governments for better coordination amongst all of the governments that need to do more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Bowman, it's Alicia Dacey.
Oh, hey, Alicia.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Okay, how confident are you that you're going to get these 3 asks from the Premier tomorrow?
Great question. I'd be surprised if they didn't honor their commitments for the operating funding. That was the third bullet that I'd mentioned. There's continued dialogue with respect to the North End Sewage Treatment Plant. There's really 2 aspects to our advocacy. The first is for confirmation that the province has finally forwarded the application that we made in 2019, in October of 2019, for provincial and federal matching funding for phases 1 and phases 2 of the North End Sewage Treatment Plant. The other issue is really, as I've spoken about, is really continued delays at the provincial level, and more recently dialogue about the procurement process, whether or not it'll be a P3 or whether it'll be owned and operated by a private sector entity. And so there's continued dialogue there, and we'll continue to work with them as best we can, but we just don't want to see continued delays. And part of the reason we broke the project apart was to just get going on phase 1. The lake has waited long enough, and that's why we've been leading, and we've begun the Headworks project, which is phase 1. Supporting public transit, I'm less confident, less optimistic, given the province has spoken openly recently about having other projects in mind for with the dollars that have been earmarked for Winnipeg Transit. The federal government has been very clear that those dollars are earmarked for Winnipeg Transit. They're allocated on a ridership basis. The province appears to have other plans, and so we're going to be working with them and continuing to advocate to ensure that when the formal ask is made, that they can support it and they can do it in an expedited basis. And that's why I began in May of last year advocating to then Minister of Municipal Relations, Rochelle Squires, to say we need to partner with you, we need to work collaboratively with you to make sure you get the request in the form that you need, you get the details that you need, you do everything you can to work in partnership with us to secure those federal dollars. And we haven't, they have yet to make that commitment that they are going to do everything they can to access those federal dollars for public transit. And this is important for a couple reasons. One, of course, one of the ways we combat climate change is by supporting public transportation and active transportation. The other is, as this city continues to grow to 1 million people, future campaigns, which I don't anticipate being involved in, but future campaigns are going to be less about potholes. They're going to be about gridlock unless we get really serious and get the funding from federal and provincial dollars, as well as provide our support to public transportation. We have to find a way to move people around efficiently in a more sustainable way. And we've seen and we've realized the benefits of the investments that we've made even on the first rapid transit line, if you look at all of the projects that are being built along that route now. So there's a good business case to be made, as well as environmental case to be made as well.
Has communication improved since you began advocating? I know that COVID has thrown things for a bit of a loop, obviously, but have you been able to access the municipal ministers?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I appreciated the opportunity to meet with Minister Scott Fielding last week, and Ministers Peterson, Minister Johnson were on the call as well. I was joined by, and they were joined by numerous provincial officials, and you know, to have that opportunity to talk about these asks in a more fulsome way is something I appreciate. You know, you don't just getting the access is one thing. The other is getting the answers you want, and so. You know, you may not always get what you ask for, but I thought it was important to let you know what those asks were in the lead up to the tabling of their budget, and to let both the provincial government and the public that I serve know that I'm going to continue to advocate for these projects.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
It's Joanne.
Hey, Joanne.
The operating funding you mentioned, are you simply asking the province to not cut it, like just to keep the freeze going and make sure the city gets the same amount this coming year?
Yeah, it's there's not a new ask. It's just maintain their existing commitments.
And how much was that again in total?
Yeah, for this year the breakdown is 273 million. Broken down, it's 75.3 million of the capital basket funding. 121.2 million of the operating basket funding, which has been frozen in recent years, as well as 76.3 million, which is mostly for emergency medical services. This is reflecting the province's obligations under the expired EMS agreement, as well as police and public safety initiatives. But again, this isn't a new ask. It's really just maintain your existing commitments. And they haven't given us reason to. They haven't given us reason to suggest that they're going to be backing away from those.
In that case, I guess, was there any thought given, because some municipalities have said it kind of amounts to a de facto cut because we're not getting cost of living increases. Are you concerned still that this might not be enough money, or for the city, does that seem to be sufficient? You know,
I think it is sufficient, given that their financial house is not in order. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'd like to see the province follow our lead and finally balance a budget. And so one of the ways that we do that is if they're going to freeze the funding, the benefit for us is we can plan with greater certainty, and we've done that with the 4-year balanced budget. And we've benefited from having greater certainty from the provincial government to be able to plan and then plan accordingly with the certainty that they've been able to provide us. And so freezing, there is a squeeze that happens, inflationary squeeze, but it's something that we can plan for, and we are planning for. So you know, the more substantive asks are where there are federal dollars on the table. They do require matching by the province, the North End Sewage Treatment Plant, and of course the transit. But these are programs that are available right now. We want to be able to access those funds now that they are available, and realize on that opportunity that we see happening in other jurisdictions.
And for the North End sewage treatment and the transit commitments, there's been no progress at all?
Well, there's been increased dialogue, and so on, you know, that's what we're hoping that we'll hear in the budget tomorrow.
But nothing to announce right now. So far, it's status quo, as you've told us the last time.
Yeah, I'll let the province announce, you know, when they've confirmed their decisions and when they're ready to announce. The budget is, you know, it's obviously their budget, and want to respect that.
Okay.
Mayor Danton Unger here with CityNews Winnipeg. It was over 200 million for the transits. If that money isn't included in the budget, how is that going to affect the master plan?
The ask that we're looking for is really, and to be fair to the province, we're looking for confirmation that they're going to support our ask, that they are going to be partnering with us to secure those federal dollars. Council needs to consider the transit master plan and then formally make that application to the province. It hasn't yet been made, but we've been given, you know, we've given them more advance notice than ever before for any project. Starting last year in May, I wrote to then Minister of Municipal Relations, Rochelle Squires, to say it's coming and we really need to work collaboratively with you to secure those funding. So really our ask is actually quite easy. It's just make a commitment that you're going to do everything you can to secure federal dollars that are on the table right now for Winnipeg Transit.
Have they budged at all on that? Are you getting any indications that that message is being heard?
We haven't heard confirmation at this stage that they support Winnipeg Transit. I think there are many good things in the transit master plan, though, including zero emission buses and other things that I think support shared objectives with the provincial and federal governments. And so obviously council needs to consider the plan, but you know, the province has been pretty open about having ideas for those dollars that are not in the city of Winnipeg. They're elsewhere in the province. And obviously, I'm going to continue to fight for Winnipeg Transit and for money the federal government intends to come to the city of Winnipeg.
Mr. Mayor, there did seem to be some measure of commitment. The province put out a release this morning with a $40 million commitment to Manitoba Restart for capital infrastructure, and I take that to be for municipalities. You'd get a share of that. Have you seen that number, and can you handicap what that might mean for Winnipeg?
Yeah, I haven't. They haven't communicated that directly to me. I haven't heard that yet, Sean. And so I'm not sure if that is other municipalities outside Winnipeg. Their capital funding, though, they have made a commitment, like a multi-year commitment for basket capital funding, which was definitely a positive for us in terms of our planning. It helped us just plan with our capital budget with their multi-year balanced budget. But I haven't seen the details of this morning's announcement, though.
With respect to the sewage treatment plant, if the funding doesn't appear, and it appears to you that phases of the project or even parts of phases of the project are in jeopardy, are you willing to say publicly that there'll simply be a moratorium on any use of Winnipeg sewage treatment plants for outlying municipalities until this is fixed?
We're not there yet, Sean, but those are the very real world decisions that may need to be made at a future date. There's an administrative report that the city has previously made public that do provide, and I'm sure you've seen it, that talk about the limited capacity. And we're counting now in a handful of years where capacity issues are potentially going to limit the amount of development that occurs in Winnipeg and the surrounding region. I mean, I've got good dialogue with the Capital Region partners, and we're obviously going to work respectfully with our Capital Region partners. But you know, there is a limit to the capacity of the North End Sewage Treatment Plant. We want to get ahead of that by not seeing further provincial delays on the outcomes of the phase 1 and phase 2. And more recently, we did have to pause the engineering on the second phase as a result of provincial delays. So we are seeing real world impacts of the delays at the provincial level. And so we obviously want to do everything we can to get them to step up and provide the funding that's been requested for some time, and forward that application onto the federal government in full for both phase 1 and phase 2.
It would seem to me, though, that if you're actually now having to delay project work, typically that costs money. Perhaps the time is now to say, well, we just can't allow any further expansion until we get this sorted out. I mean, well, I know sometime in the future maybe is pretty nebulous, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, the most recent delay is the provincial government's, you know, they certainly appear to be very firm and looking to see a P3 and to see, you know, the private sector involved in the sewage treatment plant in a way that isn't currently planned. The concern that we've seen and we've been advised on from our public service, as well as a third party, we had Deloitte provide a review of a P3, and The concerns that have been raised is delays, and that's been communicated to the provincial government, and obviously we'll have continued dialogue with them on what plans they're going to require us to follow.
Are there any other? Is there any other leverage that you have here, besides a moratorium on expansion of use of the city's facilities? I mean, you've been.
Well,
we've said this before, but we've been dialoguing about this since 2003.
Yeah, long before I was elected, this was a topic, and there wasn't much movement, and we definitely have advanced the project more significantly in recent years than ever before. But look, option one is the provincial government respond to the overwhelming support and votes on City Council for provincial and federal support. You know, in speaking with MLAs and MPs, there's definitely a lot of concern and goodwill about the health of Lake Winnipeg. We just would like to see that, you know, acted upon in providing support for the longstanding request of City Council. And so, option one is let's see things progress on Broadway and get those dollars flowing, because we're ready to go. Like we're at a stage now where we really can make a lot of progress in terms of that phase two, and the dollars just need to be shown from provincial and federal officials. And the dialogue with federal officials on this and other projects has been very positive, but they need to get the formal requests from Broadway.
And my last question is with respect to the basket funding and your acceptance that there are no increases as long as you get it, so that you know how to spend it.
Yeah.
But if you look at all the other pressures on the city of Winnipeg and no inflationary rise in funding from the province, despite the 4-year budget that you've talked about so often, it wouldn't be hard for some to look at it and say there has to be cuts to services at one point or another. Can you say now that will or will not happen?
Well, we have a 4-year, multi-year balanced budget. And so we obviously need to take a look on an annual basis to make adjustments. But we made a lot of those very difficult decisions when we balanced 4 years. And so long as the existing commitments the provincial government have made to the city of Winnipeg, I'm certainly not asking for additional dollars. I'd just like to see one other level of government balance a budget, just one day. It's been, as someone who has worked with folks across the political spectrum at City Hall, as previous mayors have done, to balance budgets, to balance 4 was not an easy feat, and to have it voted on by a card-carrying NDP, Liberals and Conservatives, was something I'm really proud of, and I think Councillor Scott Gillingham deserves a tremendous amount of credit. But I would like to see that at some future date at the provincial level and federal level as well.
Well, and then there's COVID.
Sorry, Sean?
It was just a reflection on the difficulty of a balanced budget in the near future with the astronomical costs of the pandemic and commensurate effect on the economy. Anyway, I'm not asking for comment. That's outside.
No, that's okay. And I mean, I do note before the COVID, I mean, there was additional transfers, well over $1 billion from the federal government. But in any event, it would be nice. One of the ways in which we're supporting the provincial government's efforts to bring their fiscal house in order and balance a budget is not asking for new operating dollars. It's just maintain those existing, and we'll make the decisions that are within our jurisdiction. They're not always easy, but we've done that as a council, and one of the ways we support them is by not asking for new additional, other than when we can access federal programs. You guys good?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hope everybody had a good long
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
weekend and spring break. Talk to you
You too.
soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.